Okay, can you see my screen all right?
Yeah, we can see it. Thank you.
Perfect. So, first of all, welcome and thank you so much for joining us in our new series of webinars. We're so excited to get started. Today, we'll be focusing on how marketers generate insights and content with Parrot AI. Just to start off with a few introductions, I'm Annabelle Jacoban. I'm a customer success manager here at Parrot AI, but I do dabble in some of the marketing efforts. So that's why I'm here presenting today. And I'll pass off to Renee.
Yeah, hi, my name is Renee Lyken. I recently joined Parrot AI as a growth manager. And just like Annabelle, I'm excited to see if we can help you become more efficient and effective in all things marketing today.
Awesome. So briefly, we'll just touch on some housekeeping notes, if that's okay. So first and foremost, not sure how familiar everyone is with the Zoom webinar tool, but this is a Zoom webinar, which means that Renee and I, as hosts and panelists, have our mics on and our videos on, but all other attendees will automatically, by default, have their mics off and cameras off. That doesn't mean, however, that you shouldn't get in touch with us. We really encourage questions. We plan to have a Q&A at the end. So if you have any sort of questions, I encourage you use the Q&A feature as opposed to the chat. That way we can kind of just filter out the types of comments we're getting, and we can also bubble them to the top at the end. But if you do have any sort of other comments or anything like that, feel free to use the chat. There's two of us, so we'll be touching off and on and kind of filtering through all of those comments. Um, Next, this will be recorded and sent to you all, so no need to take notes or anything like that. You can sit back and relax, and Parrot AI will kind of take care of it for you. And then last, but not least, if you have any sort of technical issues or anything like that, please feel free to use the chat, and one of us will happily help you. So with that, thanks again for joining us, and we can go ahead and get started. So you may be familiar with Parrot AI already, but I think it's kind of worthwhile to just briefly go over who we are and what we do. Primarily, we're a meeting assistant that records and transcribes your meetings, giving you a really detailed account of notes of your meetings, whether that be a campaign kickoff or a customer interview or something like that. And then we do go a bit further and we store that into a secure collaborative workspace that has the full context of your business. So what that means is you can kind of get the most out of your meetings with the minimum amount of effort. I like to think of Parrot like another member of my meetings, just with a photographic memory. So everything that is said, seen, and heard, it automatically knows that, and then it shares that in that space where you can kind of edit and interact with that content in real time. And all of that is very safe and secure, which brings me to my next point, safety or security and privacy. Um, just like briefly, over 10,000 companies use Parrot AI, so it's a proven enterprise class solution. And we think it's really important to kind of understand the security policies of the tools that you're using, especially when it comes to AI. We like AI here, but we know it's not 100% accurate. So that's why our team of cybersecurity veterans built this tool. They felt that they wanted to use something that they trusted as well. So you can safely store any sort of meeting content and rest assured that it is in the right hands. So finally here, Renee is going to go into this further, but it's worthwhile to kind of mention some of the key features up front. Like I said, we're a meeting assistant, so that applies to Zoom, Meet, Teams, and WebEx. And then we also kind of have this bring your own capability, which means you can upload most major file types. And then we also have something called auto upload. So let's say I really like to record in one of these platforms as opposed to kind of having the meeting assistant join my calls. Then, if I have auto upload connected, it'll automatically upload right to Parrot AI. So it's pretty versatile in that regard. All of those meetings come in the form of pages. So that'll give you a full summary, video, transcript, and list of action items. And then on top of that, we have an area where you can add your own notes, you can add images, you can detect slides, add links, whatever makes most sense for your use case. All of those pages can then be organized in this collaborative workspace that I mentioned, where you can kind of edit and interact with that content in real time with the rest of your team. We really encourage that you build out your data as much as you can and add as many meetings as possible to your Parrot AI accounts. That way, features like search are just all the more impactful. So that with search, you can kind of search across your all of your content basically. So whether that was the first moment, the first thing that you downloaded in Parrot AI or something that was just from a day ago, it'll recognize it. Lastly, and probably most importantly, this is my favorite feature, is Chat AI, which is your AI assistant that has the full context of your page and your meeting. So you can ask questions about your meetings directly, asking it to create a blog post or more content or draft documentation without needing to give it kind of the context that you would a normal chat bot. So there's no need to kind of say, like, here's the situation. How do I do this with it? You can get rid of that first step because Chat AI already knows what's going on. So I'm going to pass to Renee for the demo portion.
Yeah.
Kick it off.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. As soon as you stop, there we go.
There
All
we go.
right, then I can take over. You're good. You're good. So yeah, just like Annabelle mentioned, she kind of gave you a brief overview of some of the different key features. We're going to talk a little bit more about specifically how that might look and feel with some of your marketing use cases. So for example, today we're going to be working with Ava Lee, who is a fictional human that works at the fictional Macaw Labs. So we're going to pretend that we are Ava and that we're kind of working through here's how she might use Parrot AI in order to make her life more efficient and more effective. So we have an assumption that you've used Parrot AI before in some way, shape, or form. But in case you haven't, it's okay. We'll cover some of those basics as we go along. And I think maybe the very first basic to kind of touch on is how do you get the recordings into Parrot AI? And Annabelle kind of went over some of this. There's a lot of different methodologies that we have available to help people get things automatically uploaded or manually. But just kind of put some visuals to what that looks like. When you've logged into the Parrot AI application, when you click the record a meeting button in the top left, you can see like this is a really good kind of menu of all those different options. So you can actually ask the meeting assistant or your parrot to come join a meeting that you've already got kicked off right now. Like you know the little meeting URL that you see in like your calendar invites and things like that. If you paste specifically that URL in this text box and click join, then the parrot will get that invitation and come join as soon as it possibly can. If you've actually chosen to connect, you can connect either your Google Calendar or your Microsoft Outlook calendar, depending on what you prefer and use on a daily basis. This will actually show you all of the different meetings that are coming up that have those different meeting URLs visible to Parrot AI once it's been connected. And you can actually toggle on and off. Like, do you want your parrot to come to those meetings or not? And again, when you toggle it on, the parrot will get that invite and then show up at your meeting as soon as it possibly can. One thing to double check, we've seen this kind of pop in and out as an issue. If you have a waiting room set up on your meeting room platform, sometimes the parrot, oh, poor parrot, gets left in that waiting room. You have to actually admit it for it to work and actually be there with you. Trying to think if there's any other little things in there, but we've seen that one pop up, and it makes sense when you think about it, but it doesn't always, especially if you don't have access to admit them, that might be something you run into. And then last but not least, if you're setting up a new calendar invite and you already know you want the parrot to be there, you can go ahead and just add my at Parrot AI as an attendee on that calendar invite. And it will just the same as everybody else that you've listed and invited, get that calendar invite, and then it'll tell you if it accepted it. And then you can count on it to show up when you get there. So yeah, so those are all the different ways that you can kind of on demand ask it or like know that you want to invite it based on a calendar. We won't go into like the different like auto upload that Annabelle talked about, but that is in your settings section if you click under your name, if you ever wanted to go take a peek at that. There's also, if you're a paid user, you have the ability to upload recording. So say you don't use Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Meet or WebEx as your primary platform. If you have something else that you use, it doesn't mean that you can't add that into Parrot. It just means as a paid user, you have the ability to upload recordings, and we accept lots of different file formats. But once you like either drop the recording here or choose it from your file folder that wherever you had it stored, at that point, you have the ability to kind of see it go through your recording inbox that we're about to get into, just the same as everything else that's been recorded. So that gives you a lot of different ways. No matter how it is, as long as you've got a recording, we can help you with that. So cool. All right. Well, let's jump into like next up, things to know about. The recording inbox is the very first thing you land in. So let's say, like as a marketer, you probably have different campaign brainstorming sessions you go to, or you might have event planning, or maybe you've got an upcoming board meeting that you're prepping some content for. In this case, the example meeting recording we're going to use. We've gotten some feedback at McCall Labs that are based on our NPS score survey that not everything is hunky-dory in customer land. And so we want to kind of start a new initiative and kind of show them that things are going to be better. We promise, like we're really going to do this better by you next time. So they had a brainstorm session about how might they kind of title this, like what do they want to use as their slogan for that. So this one, it's already been processed. And you'll see that when you process something through Parrot AI, generally there's a few main like primary parts of the page that you'll always get. Um, so in here, it'll be titled with whatever the meeting recording was titled. You'll see the date of when it was uploaded and or when the meeting happened. You'll see, if possible, like if it wasn't an upload, you'll see the attendees list, like who it was that it saw on the participants list of the meeting. It also gives you this kind of cool summary, like a 2 to 3 sentence overview based on everything that it saw when it processed the recording and created the transcript. Like, how would you describe this really quickly to someone, which helps future you know, is this the right meeting that I want? But also kind of gives you some starting points for if you were going to describe this to what happened to somebody else, you could just copy paste this to them, or if you shared this page with them later, they've got an easy way to get the headlines out of it right away. So that's kind of the top section here. The video and transcript, we hear a lot of our users are really excited about the way that we handle our recordings and the transcripts. It makes it really easy. Like if you're in a customer interview, learning more about what they value about your product and how they feel about competitors, you can just focus on them and engaging the actual person in the interview with you. You don't have to worry about taking notes because we'll generate that transcript afterwards for you. So in this, it starts collapsed in what we call this little clip section. If you click the like expando arrow, it'll actually show you the full transcript that our AI translated out of that. Um, so in that section, like Annabelle mentioned, we wish AI was perfect. Maybe one day it will be, but not there quite yet. So sometimes there's weird punctuation things, or it didn't quite attribute who it was that was speaking correctly. So we have a really easy way to edit the transcript to fix that. So if you click this edit button in the top right, it actually will let you jump right into the transcript here. Like I think there was something in here that maybe I'm like, oh, maybe they were more excited. And I think this should have been an exclamation point because the AI didn't pick up on their intonation. So once you make whatever those changes are, you can do more drastic changes than what I just did too. When you click done, it saves the transcript. And then everybody else that comes to this page later will actually have the ability to see your already edited transcripts. So especially if you're sharing with someone who wasn't there in the conversation, doing that quick overview of like what's in the transcript. Does this match kind of how it went? Is there any funkiness that might make it harder for them to kind of quickly skim that? I usually spend a couple minutes doing that. It's usually most of the way there. I haven't had too many issues. I mentioned attribution of who was speaking at the time in the transcript. You can, when you see this little arrow on the right side, you can actually click any of that and change who it was from the attendees list that was speaking and update that to say, oh, actually, that was Alex or something like that. So that kind of helps because sometimes, depending on what kind of brainstorm you're in or what kind of content, sometimes one person's words matter more than the other, which hard to say, but it's true sometimes. Like if your boss's boss said something, you might want to make sure it's accurately attributed. So if somebody's skimming this later, they know, oh, I should pay closer attention to that. Another way, if there's like some pull quotes, whether it's a customer interview where you're like, oh, that really resonated. I want to make sure I share that with the broader team. Or if it's just, like I said, like that fancy executive person said something, they're like, oh, I'm going to go give somebody this additional context of this next action item that we have. You can actually highlight in here, like I'll just grab a sentence, a little bit random choice here. And you can actually create a moment from that. And what that will do is, I'll click it and just show you. It will take just that text and just the recording associated with that text and drop that as an excerpt or a clip down at the bottom of this page. So you can leave it on this page and kind of relabel it here. Whoops, I clicked on the wrong thing. And just say that this, like, give it a little bit more context about why this particular section was more meaningful. You can also edit anything on this page. So you can even add your own, this is why this was super important, and give somebody that little bit before they skim down to this part of the page, like, oh, this is why this part was pulled out. Um, Not quite as happy of a use case, but sometimes if you're like in a really trusting conversation with someone like a customer and they say, can this be off the record? Maybe you didn't get the recording stopped in time. There's a way to do that via the Parrot AI app that we won't go into today. But maybe you didn't get the recording stopped. You can come back in and retroactively do what we call redaction. So let's say that what Alex was saying here, we didn't actually want to have included in the recording anymore for future viewing. On the same toolbar, we have this button called redact. And when you click that, it shows you a confirmation modal so that you can be like, this is going to be permanently deleted after you type confirm and click redact. So, and this will remove it from everybody who has access to the recording. And actually, I saw that someone had asked in the Q&A, but who has access to the recording and transcript after the meeting? So in that situation, like everybody that was in the recording, like as it was happening, or in the meeting as it was being recorded, has the ability to get a link to what we call the recording page and the live meeting page. And then they can come in and they are considered kind of an owner of this recording because we believe it's really important if you're going to get recorded that you have control over what gets kind of shared about you. So while this page and all of the changes that we're making on the page overall are just for your copy, the recording itself is shared amongst all of those people that were there. So I hope that helps answer that question. But that kind of ties here. That's a key part. If you redact this part, it's for everybody that had the recording, not just for this instance on the page. So yeah, so that comes in handy if you want something off the record. Let's see, what else do. I think maybe one last thing to call out about like major sections on this page. We also, while we're processing the recording, we're also kind of listening for what potential actions. We listen for key phrases, or we call them audibles, things that indicate that somebody needs to do some kind of follow-up. And then we'll actually summarize those here. And if we knew who it was that was talking at the time, we'll actually go ahead and attribute that to, oh, Marcus is the one who said he signed up to do this. If it's not really clear in the recording who it was that was actually assigned, or if it's like a group task, that's when you might not see a name actually assigned, like in this third option. And then I think maybe just to kind of go over it too, I suppose, the topics discussed, this gets a little bit more granular. Now, granted, this was a pretty short brainstorm session. It was like 6 minutes long. But imagine that you had like an hour-long meeting, and during that, like a department meeting or something like that, or maybe you're looking at the calendar of events for the year, you might have one to many topics that are discussed there. And so here, this actually gives you a quick summary of what happened in each of those topics and gives you a quick link to actually jump to that point in the recording. Um, so that kind of gives you that ability to, if it is a longer recording, be a little bit more specific about where you want to jump in. Ooh, I see another question from Shauna. Are you able to be more selective about who has access to the transcript? Yeah, so you can choose to share only parts of this. I didn't go into it, but depending on, like, let's say you promised the customer that you wanted to give them the recording, we have a download option. And when you click download, you can actually download the recording. Also, you can take this transcript and you can turn that into like a Word doc or like Markdown format, which is like a text editor kind of format, or make it a PDF. And so you can choose only certain parts would actually be shared. So you can't necessarily do it within this page, but you can either export it somewhere else, or you have the ability to make a new page, like by clicking Add Page under the My Pages section that I'll talk about in just a moment. And in that part, you could add just this excerpt. If you had made that moment out of it, it only takes the transcript of what you elected to share. Because then you can set separate like granularity of permissions on that other page that you've made new for what you want to be able to share. So I hope that helps. Um, I think the next part I wanted to kind of get into is I talked about those are all the basics of it. So think about this as like the brain. So for Chat AI, our AI teammate, you can either access it from this bar along the bottom or the sidebar on the right side. I just had it closed. I just opened it. So now you can see its whole kind of panel. So in here, everything that's in this page is fed into Chat AI's brain. Now, we're super responsible with our AI practices. We do not train our models like other customers of Parrot AI or other users of Parrot AI. Like their access to Chat AI knows nothing about any of your content. We're very, very intentional about that. As Annabelle mentioned, security and privacy are like a top priority for us, and we would never allow that to happen. Um, so with that in mind, that means here, when you talk to Chat AI, if you've used other large language models or like a Chat GPT or something like that, you can talk to this in a very similar way. But if that sounds too fancy and you haven't done too much with LLM quite yet, that's okay. Like just ask it something like you would ask a virtual assistant or another friend or something like that or a colleague. Um, I've got a couple examples of things that you might want to do. So say you want to talk about what major insights were included in this conversation and like send that email then to somebody who didn't make the meeting. So I had it saved as a favorite, but I can improve on this. So draft a summary email to send to colleagues that didn't make it to the brainstorm. And one, oh, I spelled it wrong, but usually Chat AI is pretty smart. So now it's thinking, it's taking into consideration everything that's in this page, including the recording and the transcript. If you want to control what's in its brain, you can remove things from this page or make a new page and only put into it what you actually want to have it thinking about when it does this. You can see in its response here it's a pretty lengthy email. So you can see the text of the email that it came up with. It even like cites its sources. So these are different moments in the recording that it's like, because this happened in the recording, I believe this is something insightful to share with someone who might receive this email. Um, when I think about sending emails, I usually don't want them to be that long. So you can actually adjust your prompt or what you talk to Chat AI about. You can say, draft a summary email that takes no longer than 1 minute to read. Because some of the executives I've worked with in the past, if it took them longer to like than at a glance, they just didn't read the whole email at all. And I'm not here to judge, but I really want to make sure that my next steps and what I need from them are taken away and they've got it. So this makes it a little bit more succinct. And for all of this, you don't have to do or like take exactly what Chat AI gave you. You totally have the ability to edit this. So there's a couple different buttons that pop in at the bottom of each of the responses from Chat AI. One of them is copy. So when you click this, it takes everything that's in like this tan block and it puts it on your computer clipboard. So you can then go drop that directly into whether it's Microsoft Outlook or Gmail, whatever your email program of choice is. And then you can live edit it and then just go ahead and send once you think it's good to go. And like you include a link to the page, etc. If you want to be able to kind of collaborate, like let's say we have, you know what, let's just do the other example. Let's say that you had an action item to write a blog post to tell all the previously dissatisfied customers of Macaw Labs that, by the way, we've got a new initiative. Everything's going to be better from now on. You could say, I'll start with my starter content here, draft a blog post about the new customer service initiative that's targeted at dissatisfied customers. So in this case, this is something that you might want more revisions on, right? Like you might not just be like, oh, it's one and done. You might be able to want to share it with other people and make sure they're okay with it before it goes out. You can do all of that right in Chat AI. When this finishes, it'll have that little button on the right that I was showing you that says add to page. And when you click add to page, that actually drops it at the very bottom of this page. All right, here we go. So now that it's written the first draft of the blog post, when I click add to page, this is now at the very bottom of this page, and I can jump right in and start editing this. And I can actually share this with some of my other colleagues if I want to get their feedback. I can go ahead and share this page directly, even while it's still in my recording inbox if I want. Right now, it's only me that has access to that, as you can see here. But let's say I wanted to add Annabelle. Once I type in Annabelle's email address, I can set what she only gets view access. Does she like get edit access and the ability to comment because that would be really helpful if I had a blog post that I wanted her feedback on. Or admin means she can also manage the sharing, like who else kind of gets access to this page. So you could send it directly that way. You could also, this My Pages section, it's very similar to recording inbox in that you can share that way, but you also can choose to kind of organize this and make different folders, like how I've put the one-on-one notes example page here inside the My Pages as a folder. So that's kind of still defaults to only you. You have control over who gets access to it. But in recording inbox, it's like your email inbox. They're just sorted in whatever order. And so depending on how often you kind of clean that up, if you have lots of recordings, it's much easier to be able to organize things in My Pages sometimes. And last but not least, if you are on a team or enterprise plan, you actually have access to a feature called workspaces. And if you think about these like almost like your network drives, um, this means any page that I drag directly in here. So like if I drag customer service slogan brainstorm into the marketing and sales folder, now the other three workspace users automatically have access to this page. And I can send them this link from the address bar and they can jump right in and see it and everything's hunky dory. Um, that makes it a little bit easier to collaborate as teams, especially if you're working with lots of other people at a time. And then I think the one last part here is we have been working on building out a lot of different integrations because our goal isn't to get in your way. Again, back to we want to help you be efficient, not just do extra steps in between. So we already have some integrations with Confluence and with Monday.com that have gone live. Soon to come is one with HubSpot and one with Jira. So depending on where your work needs to get exported to, you can export this whole page into, like if you manage all of your tasks in Monday.com or something like that. And that gives you a little bit more flexibility. You don't have to stay in Parrot, but we try to make it really easy to use if you do. Um, all right. And I see, oh, how exactly can people collaborate in Parrot AI? I thought I saw something about comments. Yes. So when you double click or highlight any of the text in the page, you can actually click this comment button and it'll attribute, like I could say, this is a comment. And you can see that right here, it says, oh, because I'm Ava right now, this is what Ava said about this part. And you can reply to that if you had feedback and things like that. So this particular feature, if you're going to do it inside of Parrot, you do need a user account to be able to comment. But that does give you some flexibility to kind of keep it all here if you wanted. So hopefully that helped. Um, I think that's everything that I intended to kind of go through today. Annabelle, is there anything else you think I should talk through or any questions I missed?
I don't think so. I think you kind of hit everything.
All
I'm
right.
happy to open up the Q&A section if there are any more questions.
I guess that when I try and answer questions live in the flow, I guess
Yeah,
that
you
means we
kind of
have a
nailed
quiet Q&A.
it. If there are no many more questions, we could close out. But thank you so much for joining us. We were so excited to share all of this with you, and we'd love to hear from you. So if you have any sort of questions about plans or anything like that, please feel free to reach out to sales@parrot.ai. Or if you have any sort of support needs, you can reach out to help@parrot.ai. We're always eager to help and even listen to any sort of feedback if there's no support issue or anything like that. So happy to keep in touch. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.